Good morning, people, or maybe I should say good afternoon. This is the Red Road channel, and this is Roger Thunderhands, just kicking back in the Shaman's den here. Today I'm going to teach you two techniques that if you do them properly and you listen exactly to what I'm saying, and even if you have to rewind the video, you will have an instant change in consciousness. And I don't say this lightly. These are beautiful techniques that come from different sources. Now, one comes from an indigenous source, an Apache source, and it's a tracking technique that they use to put themselves in a certain frame of mind and in a certain consciousness to be able to become one with the land. That's why they were known as such expert trackers. Now, like I said, you have to follow these instructions exactly. And this technique is called Splatter Vision. I don't know where I first learned it, but it was a long time ago. And it came through, it might have come through Tom Brown Jr., the world's famous tracker. And, but it may not have. It came to me in ways that I can't remember, but if you do this technique, Splatter Vision, and you do it along with another technique that I'm going to teach you, if you do those two in sequence, your consciousness will be raised immediately. You will go into another way of looking at life. It will surprise you. It will, basically you'll be in awe. You'll feel like, wow, wait a minute here. What have I been doing before? Have I been walking around like a robot? Well, very possibly so. And I will get into that later, maybe after I teach you the techniques, but we'll talk about it. Now, the first technique that I'm going to teach you, again, like I said, is called Splatter Vision. And how you do this technique is as follows. First of all, you hold your arms directly out to your side. And you just kind of gaze straight ahead, off into infinity. This is how you start it. You just gaze ahead and you hold your arms out to your side. Now, as you're holding your arms out to your side, I won't keep holding them because you know what I'm talking about now. As you hold your arms out to your side, you face your fingers the same direction that you're facing, in other words, forward. Now, what you do at this point is, as you soften your gaze, you start wiggling your fingers with your arms out at your side, like I mentioned. You start wiggling them. And as you're wiggling them, you try to see your wiggling fingers on the ends of your hands out of the periphery of your eyes, okay? And I mean both eyes, not looking one way or not looking another. Basically what you're doing is you're looking straight ahead and you're trying to widen the angle. You're widening the angle of your vision, or your field of vision, right? So this is kind of like a fisheye lens, or something like that you would see on a camera, where you see the landscape view, the whole landscape, rather than just focusing down on one area. And as you continue looking out of the corners of your eyes and you're starting to pick up something moving out there and it's your fingers, at first it might be difficult. And so in order to ease into it, you could actually bring your arms a little bit further forward so that you can, then you might start picking it up. And as you progress, you bring them back, you bring your arms back, and you widen and widen and widen. This is a technique that will not only widen your angle, your view of the landscape, but also it has an effect. It's a shamanistic thing, okay? So it has an effect on your consciousness as well. Because what it does is it stretches your consciousness, it stretches your boundaries, it widens, it opens you up, okay? So we have that part down. We have the part where you're gazing off straight ahead. Remember, never looking side to side, just kind of like you're in a zone. You look straight ahead and you do that technique, and then as you feel that you have widened your vision, you can bring your arms down, because it's a state of mind, okay? It just kind of puts you in that state of mind. And then when you get that feel, and you see, yeah, I got it. I know what he's talking about. I know what this is. I feel like it feels different. Then you can just basically relax your arms and just use them as normally. But then what I want you to do, part 2 of this actually should be done out in nature where there's lots of colors and greens and trees and maybe browns in the blue sky and maybe some white clouds. This is where this should be done ideally. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean you can't do it sitting in your living room, because you can, or walking around in your living room. You can do the same thing. You can put yourself there, but it's best to start with this out in nature. And as you walk, let's say you're near some trees, or you're in a park, or you're just in a place where there's not a lot of people and you're just experimenting with this. As you walk around, what I want you to do, this is part 2 of the technique, is as you're in this widened angle splatter vision, everything should become as if you were a newborn baby and you didn't know what things were. In other words, you want to try to keep it in your mind that you're not labeling things. In other words, you don't say, oh, there's a tree, although it might be a tree to you. Or there's the grass, or there's the mountain, or there's the blue sky. I want you to get into the frame of mind where everything is a pattern. That you don't know the name of it. Again, just like you were a newborn baby. And they think that everything is them. I mean, they don't know where their skin ends and the world begins. It's just, wow, look at this, look at that. And they reach out and they grasp. But they don't know what anything is. Everything has to be taught to them. Oh, that's a tree or whatever. So what you want to do is at least think of that. And as you're walking around slowly, very slowly, gently putting one foot in front of the other, you will want to get into that frame of mind, and this splatter vision will actually facilitate that. It will put you into that frame of mind. It's like it will be real easy to just widen out and go, wow, and let the colors become vibrant, and let everything just flow, and look at things as patterns. If you walk by and you see the bark on a tree, well, you will look at that as like, wow, that's an interesting weave pattern or whatever. So that is a really good way to do this technique. And course, you want to be breathing normally and taking deep breaths and just relaxing too. So I might get back to this a little bit more if I forgot something about it, but we're going to go on to the next technique now, which in conjunction with this technique is mind-blowing, because just this technique and the one I just taught are mind-blowing. But this one is it's intense, and it's very meditative, and it's also very grounding, and it's also taking you out of your robotic self. So the next technique I'm going to teach you, and it goes hand in hand with the other one. I found myself personally, I discovered this on my own, how well these two techniques go together and how they just kind of catapult you off into a different consciousness. So let me explain the second technique now. You can come back to the first one and review that, but just keep that in mind and how well these are going to go hand in hand. Now, the second technique is called being in presence. Again, you want to be outside, maybe a bench nearby or a rock that you can sit on. It's best to do this probably sitting down, I would think. And you always want to be in an upright, spine erect position so the energy can flow. Now on this technique, what you're going to want to do is just sit down, relax, do some deep breathing. Just do some real deep breathing into your abdominal area and just relaxing your whole being, your chest, your abdomen. Make sure you try to shake out your shoulders a little. And rest your hands on, the palms of your hands on your knees would probably be the best way. Or you could do a mudra thing where you connect the thumb and forefinger. And that would work real well because that helps energy flow. But anyway, you might be using your hands in this technique anyway, so just a thought, rest them down there. Now I want you to close your eyes. This is something that will just amaze you, believe me. Close your eyes. And we have 5 senses, okay? Actually, we have more than that. We have higher senses, and this kind of will catapult you into that area. But we use the 5 senses for this technique. So as you're sitting there and you're relaxing and you're breathing and you're watching your breath, the first thing that I want you to tune into, as far as your senses go, is the sense of touch. The sense of touch. And what I mean by this is, as you're sitting there, I want you to feel how the clothes feel on your body, let's say. I want you to tune into how the clothes feel on your body. I want you to tune into whatever you're sitting on, how that feels. I mean, the actual contact with that against your body, and if your feet are on the ground, I want you to feel that. Everything is about, this first modality is about touch. And you might take your hand and rub it across your jeans or whatever you're wearing, and the tips of the fingers, and just feel the fabric. And remember, you're doing this all with your eyes closed and you're relaxed. You're tuning into the feel. This is very important. You feel things, and you might feel the wind. You might feel like a wisp of wind blow across your face, and maybe part of your hair touches your face or blows across your face. You want to get really, really into everything that you feel. And you're sitting there with your eyes closed still, and it's like you're a blind man, and you're using other senses. Let's put it that way. You're acquiring familiarity with your other senses. So you work on that a while. You just work on the feeling aspect, the feeling, and then next let's go to the hearing. Let's go to tuning in on the sense of hearing. And as you sit there, you will notice after you have gone into the feeling thing that things might be coming amplified or a little bit different now. And you might hear a dog barking off in the background, or you might hear, what a nice thing to hear is wind in the trees and how the tree leaves speak to you. They have a voice of their own. They're communicating with you. The rustle of the wind in the trees. All these things, the dog barking, you might hear somebody off in the background way away. Hopefully you won't, because human voices are not conducive to this. You'll be in a really serene, you could even be up in the mountains. And then you're going to want to tune in to like nature, to the wildlife, to the birds. You might hear a bird rustling around in a tree, or you might hear movement in the brushes, or you might hear something fall off in the distance from a tree limb, or a pine cone, or wherever you're at. You want to tune into just the hearing. Now, as you're doing this, you don't forget about tuning into your, just your touch. Try to keep that, even though you're focusing on this particular sense. But it's okay if you let it go to get into this sense, but just keep it in the back of your mind, all right? So you've tuned in to everything, and pretty soon it's like, and you want to do the same thing that I told you with splatter vision. Don't try to identify that as a dog barking. Don't try to identify it as even the wind in the trees. Let's look at these things as just sounds, vibrations, weird patterns of vibrations and sounds. You just look at it almost like it's a sound effect thing, a tape loop, kind of like a recorded MP3 or something. You're just listening to it and going, wow, what's that? And then at first you might hear an airplane or whatever, but then you turn it into not being an airplane, just a sound, okay? And then you will see how some sounds can be intrusive, all right? But putting that aside, that's what you're going to want to do. This is exactly what you're going to want to do. And remember, your eyes are closed all this time. Now, it might seem like this takes a long time, but it doesn't, because my explanation is what takes a long time, so that you can get it a firm grasp in your mind. As to the procedures, you might want to even take notes, or like I say, go back to the video again. So we've done touch, okay, and we've done hearing. Now let's go into tasting. Okay, so you want to become aware. You want to move to the sense of taste, and you want to become aware of your lips, and maybe whether your mouth is dry or however it feels to you. You want to kind of tune into that whole sense of taste. Now this isn't going to be as expansive right then unless you're like actually tasting something, and you could do that too, but it might distract from this. What I'm saying here is I just want you to tune into the fact that you have taste, and your lips might be salty, or you might have a taste in your mouth. You might have just had a cup of tea or whatever. And just tune into that. Okay, so we have 3 senses now, and you're still sitting there in this state of just breathing and noticing your senses, coming to your senses. There's an old saying, coming to your senses. This puts a whole new meaning on it. Now, let's go to, so we've done feeling, and let's go to the sense of smell. Here's one that people don't use a lot, or they don't think about as much as they should. So let's tune in. Your eyes are still closed, and you start smelling the air. You don't have to sniff. Just as you breathe in, you just take in, like, can I detect a fragrance, or is there something in the air, or so as you do this, it might take a while actually, but pretty soon you will start smelling things like what leaves smell like, or what a tree, or what the earth smells like, or what wet earth smells like, or what somebody cooking a dinner off in the distance and it's in the wind and you pick up a whiff of it, or anything that has it. Somebody might be burning some incense, or somebody might have a fire in a fireplace, things of that nature. This is something you really, really want to tune into. And really, trip on the smells, okay, that are out there. You might even smell a heated up car that you just drove into the parkway, or anything. And now your senses are going to start coming into full bloom here. Because now you've gone through the progression of senses. Right? And so you started with touch, and so now what I want you to think about doing is doing a little review in your mind while you're still sitting there, and just go back to touch real quick and stay there for a couple of seconds to try to tune into that, and then go back to taste, and then go back to smelling, and then go back to hearing. All these things are as your eyes are closed, and you might be saying, yeah, but there's one more. What about seeing? Well, I just taught you that. I taught you the first part of that. So this is the little connection here that's going to catapult you into a different state of consciousness. You can treat this as a meditation, a walking meditation and a sitting meditation. Now, go back to Splatter Vision and think about what we were doing then. We were doing the same thing that we're doing with our senses. We widened our angle. We tuned into basically we really saw life in a different way. We saw things in a different way. So before you open your eyes, you're going to want to go back and try to see that in your mind's eye, what you were doing. You want to try to see it and feel it in your mind's eye. Without opening your eyes, you want to go back into Splatter Vision. You want to see how that felt. You want that feeling to be in your eyes, right? Now, this is before you open your eyes. Then you want to slowly drift and open your eyes and bring that Splatter Vision into view. Because when you come out of this being in presence and going all to your senses, coming to all your senses, it has a profound effect on a metaphysical level and on a spiritual level. You might say that, but also on a psychological level and on a body-mind level. And here's why. Because the techniques described here take you from being in everyday robotic routine, okay, where we shut down all the senses. We might shut down the sense of hearing if we're in a noisy city. We might dim our view a little bit because we don't want to see certain things. We don't want to smell the exhaust in the air, so we might shut down our sense of smelling. These are things, and we get robotic, and we jump in the car, and we go from point A to point B. We go to work, and then home from work. From work to home, and it's all robotic, and it's like we're in a sort of unnatural. We're in a disembodied state. We're in a trance state. So what this does, and we're also in a trance state as far as our thinking and our worries and all these other things. And there's another part of this, but I'm not going to teach it now, and it talks about the depressor and the fixer that tries to interfere with all this stuff that I'm talking about here. And thoughts. As you're focusing in now you're coming out of the thing, and you're tuned into all your senses, and you basically have got rid of the disembodied self, the routine, the robotic self. It's gone, and you're coming out of it, but it's all going to try to invade again. But this is an actual shape shift. This people talk about shape shifting. Shape-shifting is this, okay? Because when you get into that frame of mind, you start realizing that the disembodied self, or the tensed up self, or the self that's running around and thinking and trying to do everything and doing habitual stuff, is really not you. It's a programmed you. So this allows you to jump out of the program. Let's say you do it 15 minutes a day. I guarantee you, once you learn this and do it correctly, and I want comments on this. I want you people to try this, because this is kind of an easier way. I've described many consciousness raising techniques and pranayama and different types of yoga and all kinds of things that takes years and years to develop. But this is kind of like an instantaneous changing of your consciousness. And I promise you, I guarantee you, that if you do this correctly, what I just described here, and sit there and you're in a park and you go through this stuff and you really, really kind of just let it happen. Don't try. I gotta do this right now. No, that's not the attitude you want to take. This is like a relaxed thing. This is a meditation. This is a fun thing. Just like when you're a baby, right? You reach out to stuff and you don't even know what it is. This is a fun thing, just to let you feel your natural environment, your natural self. And it's a jolt. I remember one day I was walking out of my apartment in San Diego when I lived there. And I was practicing this technique regularly, going to the park and just going into the zone, right? Getting out of the stress of living and everything. And this black lady came in, nice black lady that lived in the same apartment that I lived in. And I wanted to talk to her. I stopped. I said hello. And as we talked, I was describing her. She asked me what I was doing, and I was telling her about this technique that I knew. And she goes, "Oh, really?" And she got really interested in it. She wanted to know about it. So basically what I did is I actually went through this with her. As she was standing there, I just told her to close her eyes and went through the different things with her about tuning into this sense and that sense. And I really didn't do the splatter vision thing with her. I just did the tuning into your senses. And I think I was talking to her about, maybe 5-10 minutes. Her eyes were closed. She was standing there, and I'll never forget it to this day. When she came out of it, she was like, "Holy I mean, she didn't even know where she was. It was like, oh my God. It was like just something that she listened enough and listened to my voice enough and listened to the instructions enough to where she picked up on it right away and went into it. And so that's how easy this stuff can be, is the point I'm trying to make here. This can be real easy if you make it fun. I'm here to help people. I'm here to try to take them out of their mundane routine, get them into a more shamanistic frame of mind. And there's really a lot of talk about this right now concerning the UFO community and consciousness and psionics, and seems like there's a huge interest out there, especially amongst younger people, about telepathy and about tuning in to this kind of stuff. The problem is, you can talk about this stuff all day long. What I'm doing right now is I'm showing you a way to get into it without taking any kind of let's say medicinal herb or helping herb. You can do that too. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do this not drinking now. Drinking kind of dulls it, okay, but if you want to experiment around with different mind-altering smoke, all right, or whatever, it's fine. It's totally cool. Because that will just maybe even help you out with it more, get you to relax. This goes way beyond. Once you get into it, you realize this goes way beyond, having to change my consciousness with a source, let's say a material source, a plant or whatever, which is, like I say, that's cool too. So these techniques, you should put them together. You go out and just for a quick review here, you go out and do splatter vision, just like I told you how to do it. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear back from you, because I know it's going to blow your mind if you do it correctly. If you really do it correctly, it's quite an excursion into an alternate reality. And again, I can't, so the being in presence comes from ancient Kashmir and some meditation techniques and stuff like that. And then the splatter vision, like I said, comes from the Apache world or the trackers or that type thing, to like get by harsh conditions or be at one with the land or whatever. So what you're doing, and then they knew about this presence that they did, the ones that were using splatter vision, because that's part of it. That's why I'm teaching part of it. It just so happens that the technique that I'm teaching is from another indigenous culture, but the two match perfectly. They fit together perfectly. So, we are all one, and so the ancient techniques that people use, we are all one. And we are all learning together and teaching together, and hopefully united in love, right? United in love, coming from the heart space, and coming to realizations that we need stuff like this. We need stuff like this in our life. It's an escape, but yet it isn't, because it's a way to heal. It's a way to heal, and in order to heal, you have to access alternate realities. So I guess I'll end it there. If you would please like and subscribe and all that stuff, that'd be great. And if you want to, I'm going to put a link to my Substack account, The Red Road, and that would be good to do to help support this channel, or make an offering, let's say, for whatever you receive in the way of instruction, just as like this. And this is in my book Emergence as well. So it's me teaching Natalie and Robert these techniques, and it's a fun book. It's a fun book to read because it's packed full of stuff like this. Shamanistic techniques, different views on life. So anyway, I'll leave it there today, and I'll just say until I see you next time, Wopila, which means thank you, aho.